Ever wondered what life was like in early medieval India after the end of the Gupta Empire? The story begins in the 6th century, marking the onset of the early medieval period in India. This period follows the decline of the Gupta Empire, an era that saw the flourishing of arts, science and culture. As the Gupta Empire diminished, the late classical age of Hinduism emerged, carrying forward till the 13th century with the rise of the Delhi Sultanate in northern India. This was also the time when imperial Kannauj came to the forefront, leading to the Tripartite Struggle, a power contest between the three major kingdoms of the time. In southern India, this period saw the end of the later Cholas with the death of Rajendra Chola III in 1279. However, certain aspects of the classical period continued until the fall of the Vijayanagara Empire in the south around the 17th century. As we delve deeper, we'll explore how this period was a crucible of change, setting the stage for the India we know today. Religion and philosophy played a significant role in shaping society during this period. From the 5th to the 13th century, a significant shift in religious practices took place. The once prevalent Shrauta sacrifices began to decline, giving way to the expansion of various initiatory traditions. This period saw the flourishing of Buddhism, Jainism, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Shaktism, each leaving an indelible mark on the cultural and religious landscape of early medieval India. The spiritual and philosophical systems that developed during this era became cornerstones of the major religions in India. Hinduism, for instance, witnessed the rise of different philosophical schools. The Mimamsa school, founded by Kumarila Bhatta in the 7th century, staunchly defended the Vedic rituals against Buddhist critiques, contributing significantly to the spiritual discourse of the time. In Buddhism, the period was marked by the development of numerous philosophical systems and practices. The religion's expansion in royal courts resulted in the production of some of India's finest art, considered the epitome of classical development. Jainism too saw considerable growth during this time. The religion expanded in royal courts, leading to the development of unique spiritual and philosophical systems that continued to shape Jain thought. In the 8th century, Adi Shankara traveled across the Indian subcontinent, propagating the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta. His teachings consolidated and unified the main characteristics of the then current thoughts in Hinduism. However, this period wasn't just about religious expansion and philosophical development. It was also a time of intellectual exchange and debate. Adi Shankara, for instance, was a critic of both Buddhism and the Mimamsa school of Hinduism. His critiques and counter-arguments added to the richness of the intellectual landscape of the period. This period, rich in its philosophical and religious diversity, was a time of great intellectual and spiritual growth. But as some religious practices flourished, others declined. Let's take a closer look at the decline of Buddhism. As the centuries rolled on from the 5th to the 13th, Buddhism, once a major spiritual path in India, began to lose its foothold. This was not a sudden event but a gradual process influenced by various factors and individuals. One of the key figures in this decline was Kumarila Bhatta, a philosopher of the 7th century. He formulated his school of Mimamsa philosophy, which ardently defended Vedic rituals against Buddhist criticism. Bhatta's vigorous defense of Hinduism and its practices is considered a significant factor in the dwindling influence of Buddhism in India. Then, in the 8th century, another influential figure emerged, Adi Shankara. He traversed the length and breadth of the Indian subcontinent, spreading the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta. Shankara was a critic of Buddhism and worked tirelessly to unify the main characteristics of the then current thoughts in Hinduism. His efforts played a pivotal role in the consolidation of Hinduism, which indirectly led to the further decline of Buddhism. However, it wasn't just the philosophical debates that affected Buddhism's standing. Political events also played a part. The invasion of Sindh, now part of modern Pakistan, by Muhammad bin Qasim in 711 CE resulted in further decline of Buddhism. The conquering forces brought with them a new religion, Islam, which started to take root in the region, further competing with Buddhism. And so, over centuries, Buddhism, which had once been a central part of India's spiritual landscape, found its influence waning. It was gradually overshadowed by an evolving Hinduism and the newly introduced Islam. This shift wasn't just about the rise and fall of religions, it was a reflection of the changing socio-political fabric of India, a country that has always been a melting pot of diverse cultures and ideologies. Buddhism, once a dominant force in India, found itself gradually losing ground to emerging religious ideologies. The power dynamics of northern India were in constant flux during this period. From the 8th to the 10th century, a fascinating political dance played out. This was a time marked by the Tripartite Struggle, a complex, multi-sided conflict involving three major powers. In one corner were the Gurjara Pratiharas of Malwa. Their stronghold was in the western and central parts of India, and they were renowned for their military prowess. Their opponents were the Palace of Bengal, who held sway in the eastern region. Known for their administrative acumen and patronage of education and arts, the palace left an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of the region. And then there were the Rashtrakutas of the Deccan. These powerful rulers from the southern part of India were known for their architectural marvels, including the iconic rock-cut Kailasa temple at Ellora. Each of these dynasties sought to exert control over the fertile Gangetic plains, leading to a series of skirmishes, alliances, and betrayals. Simultaneously, another significant power was emerging in the form of the Chalukya dynasty. The Chalukyas made their mark not just with their military might, but also with their contribution to architecture. They constructed the Dilwara temples, the Modera Sun Temple, and the Rani Ki Vav, all in the distinctive style of Maru Gurjara architecture. Their capital, Anhilwara, was one of the largest cities in the Indian subcontinent at the time, teeming with a population estimated at 100,000 in the year 1000. So, what we see during this period is a constantly shifting kaleidoscope of power. Dynasties rose and fell, territories were won and lost, and through it all, the culture, art, and architecture of the region flourished and evolved. This tripartite struggle was much more than a power play. It was a crucible in which the social and cultural fabric of northern India was shaped and reshaped. Thus, power shifted and swayed, shaping the political landscape of the region. While power struggles were ongoing in northern India, southern India saw the emergence of a major power. In the heart of southern India, the Chola Empire was beginning to flex its muscles. It was during the reign of Raja Chola I and Rajendra Chola I that the Chola Empire truly demonstrated its might. These rulers were not content with their hold over southern India alone. Their ambitions led them to successfully invade parts of Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka in the 11th century, expanding their empire far beyond the Indian subcontinent. The Chola Empire was renowned for its naval strength, a force to be reckoned with. Their navy allowed them to extend their influence over the maritime trade routes of the Indian Ocean, controlling the flow of trade and wealth into the Indian subcontinent. This maritime prowess played a crucial role in the expansion of their empire and the propagation of Indian culture and Hinduism across Southeast Asia. Meanwhile, on the other side of the subcontinent, the Kashmiri Karkota dynasty was exerting its influence. Under the rule of Emperor Lalitaditya Muktapida, the Karkota dynasty led an aggressive military campaign in northern India and Central Asia. The narrative of the Raja Tarangini, penned by Kalhana, credits King Lalitaditya with these conquests, painting a picture of a ruler with a thirst for expansion. Simultaneously, the Hindu Shahi dynasty held sway over parts of eastern Afghanistan, northern Pakistan, and Kashmir. From the mid-7th century to the early 11th century, the Hindu Shahi dynasty was a dominant force in these regions, marking their reign with significant architectural and cultural contributions. These expansions and invasions were not merely power plays, they marked a period of significant geopolitical shifts, reshaping the cultural and political landscapes. They also facilitated the spread of religious and cultural ideologies, intertwining the histories of regions far beyond their borders. These expansions and invasions marked a period of significant geopolitical shifts. The early medieval period in India was a time of dynamic change and growth. This era saw the end of the Gupta Empire, the rise of the Delhi Sultanate, and the advent of imperial Kannauj, setting the stage for the Tripartite Struggle. The decline of Buddhism and the expansion of initiatory traditions like Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Shaktism marked significant shifts in religious and philosophical thought. The period also witnessed a flourishing of arts, producing some of India's finest works, which remain the epitome of classical development. The contributions of thinkers like Kumarila Bhatta and Adi Shankara in shaping the spiritual and philosophical systems of India were paramount. Their efforts led to the consolidation of Vedic rituals and the propagation of Advaita Vedanta. The period was also marked by intense political changes, with dynasties like the Gurjara Pratiharas, the Palas, and the Rashtrakutas vying for control of northern India. And so the early medieval period laid the groundwork for the rich and diverse tapestry of Indian culture and history that we see today.